Hi, we're Shannon and Jerry Arner,
And our dog, Betty White.
your hosts of the Arner Adventures Podcast.
Could we have named it something more creative? Probably. But it's the name of our blog. It's our last name. We're on an adventure. Yada, yada, yada. After owning our own business, working 24/7,
And don't forget a mental breakdown in between.
we made a lifestyle change and decided to make the most out of life.
We sold our house, most of our belongings, downsized, and moved to the coast.
We live life minimally, but fully.
We live each day as an adventure.
This show will help you learn how to live life more fully, with more intention, by experiencing more, and with less stuff.
We'll talk about our own experiences, interview others who have much to share by creating a spark in our lives.
Some days we'll share real-life ongoings of what we're going through, and others will talk about our favorite flavor of waffle.
Come join our adventure.
It's the Arner Adventures Podcast. Hey guys, I'm Jerry,
And I'm Shannon.
and our pup Betty White is here, and we are back with episode 7 of the Arner Adventures Podcast. Oh gosh, I think we're gonna make it. You know what they say.
I think we're gonna make it too. With this being episode 7, they say that if a new podcast series reaches 7 episodes, then the show is more likely to keep going. So unless we decide that, before next week that we're gonna put the kibosh on this thing, I think we're good to go.
You know, we got some really good momentum going, and you know what they say about momentum.
I know what you say about momentum.
Every day. Something to be said about momentum.
Yeah.
So I think we got it right now, and we're rolling along pretty good. So
Yeah,
we
thanks.
feel that the next 7 will be just as fun, I should say, as the first.
Yeah. And, we're, this episode is actually going to, if you're listening to it on the drop date, it should be February 1st. So that means we made it through a month of podcasting.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. I mean, it all went pretty quickly, and
Yeah.
I think before we know it, we're going to be into a whole year of this thing and think, wow, where did the time go?
Where did the time go?
Yeah.
Well, thanks to the help of our guests and thanks to the help of you guys who are listening. Honestly, I think we just did this and thought, well, we maybe us and our close family and friends will be the only ones listening. So we appreciate it. If you're listening to this, thank you so much.
So before we get started, we want to begin with a review of the week and to announce that we are sending a Sugar Wish gift pack to Jerome Shaw.
Yeah. So Jerome said, and this was the greatest, listened to episode Why We Sold Everything and Moved to the Coast. Love the intro music. Wow, that's great. Great chemistry and enthusiasm. Very genuine and authentic. Enjoyed this episode that really sets the tone. Learning about how you made this big shift. Coming from hard losses is not easy, and seeing your change in perspective is inspiring. People think I'm crazy for being a minimalist as well, so it completely resonated. Thank you for sharing your story and keeping it lighthearted. Recommended to anyone who enjoys learning life lessons from a kickin' couple.
Wow.
Wow. A
Jerome.
kickin' couple.
Kicking couple. Thank you.
Jerome.
Kicking is what we aspire to, so thanks, Jerome.
Yeah, we do.
That's the first time it was actually articulated to us that we were a kicking couple.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, that just says something for we're reaching some of our first goals. To be a kicking couple is one of them.
Yeah.
So thanks for taking the time to give us that amazing review. That means a lot to us, especially for an episode where we really put it all out there. Backstory, which is pretty vulnerable.
Yeah.
If you'd like to enter to win a gift pack from Sugar Wish, then please leave us a review and we will draw a name before next week's podcast. It means a ton to support us in that way.
Yeah. And speaking of vulnerability and putting yourself out there, our guest on today's episode really does that. We also want to add that Jerry actually wasn't at the recording of this episode. He had a little adventure of his own because of the time difference too, where the guest is located. Hint, hint, she is in Paris. And the recent sort of crazy weather that we've had here on the coast, Jerry was out of pocket during the recording. So we were definitely not going to reschedule since we were able to get her. We were so excited. So Jerry and I both prepared for the episode since we are admirers of her, and we prepared and had the questions ready together, and I was at the recording, so you do not hear Jerry in this episode because he was actually not at the virtual meeting with her.
So without further ado, let's get to it.
Our guest episodes are all about inviting people who have really lit a spark in us in one way or another, who have inspired us, who have cultivated the life that they desire, whether that be due to overcoming certain circumstances or just going for their dreams, their goals. And this guest really does that. Let's just get right into it and tell you who the guest is today. Our guest is Sutanya Dacres. Sutanya Dacres is the creator and host of the podcast Dinner for One, which has been featured in the New York Times, BBC, The Guardian, Time Out, and more. She's held a number of copywriting positions in New York City and Paris. Having grown up in the Bronx, she currently resides and cooks dinners for one in the Montmartre, she'll correct me if that's wrong, neighborhood of Paris. We discovered her and the Dinner for One podcast at the beginning of the pandemic when we were looking for comfort, and she became a staple for us and has ever since, which is why this is such an honor for us to have her on the podcast. Sutanya, thank you so much for being here and for doing us the honor.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for that lovely introduction. I'm like blushing over here.
Did I pronounce the neighborhood correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you did okay. I can't even pronounce it that well. I'm going to sound terrible now when I say it. I guess the correct kind of like Frenchified pronunciation would be Montmartre. Like there's like a little on the R-E, but you did great.
I took French in high school and college, but you know, I'm from the South. My French teacher in high school used to completely make fun of me for the way that I would tear up French. So I'm not even going to try to do it. But yeah, that little throaty thing I cannot do. Yeah.
It takes a bit. I studied French in high school and college too, actually. And even when I moved here, my French was it was terrible. I really took like living in the country, being around French speakers, being in the culture that, got me to where I am today, which is like, being able to speak a passable French, I guess.
With the time difference, especially, I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, no problem.
And of course, with the pandemic and all of that, Omicron, Armageddon, all of that. How are you doing? How is it over there?
You know what? It's the government here is pretty. They have pretty. I guess is strict the right word, but they have pretty strong, I guess, measures around the vaccine.
Yeah.
So like if you're not vaccinated, you have the choice, but if you choose not to be vaccinated, you can't go to the movies, you can't go to theaters, you can't go to restaurants. Your life is, the pleasure that you can get in life is then, it's only, the supermarket and like the subway and work. It's the only places you can go essentially. So because of that, we still have to wear masks like indoors, but restaurants are open, movie theaters are open. I think I read the other day that in the beginning of February, clubs are going to be open again. I'm a bit too old to go clubbing, but the younger kids will have their clubs back. And I wouldn't say things are back to normal, quote unquote, whatever normal is, but it doesn't feel as scary as it did last year. I think because most people, have the 3 doses, and for the most part, people follow instructions. Most people working from home. The government also helps a lot in terms of financially and very kind of lenient. If you get COVID and you have to be home for 7 or 10 days, however long your isolation period is, you still get paid. You know what I mean? So it makes it easy as a society to not feel like your entire world is imploding because the government is doing their job, which is to take care of the citizens that voted them into power.
Right.
So it feels like there is a light at the end of the tunnel at some point.
Yeah.
It's a very long tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We visited, and it's interesting because I know that it was about the same time you came back to the States over, I guess that was maybe October
we went to New York. I'm trying to think when we went to New York,
Okay.
but anyway, we were in New York, and I think it was, I don't know. I don't, it's gone now, but I think it was maybe October-ish or June. We went twice. I don't know, June and then in October, but around the time it reopened back up, and I was thinking, oh, okay, like I think things are going to be good. Things are going to be good. And then it was like a ghost town. And then when we went back in October, things were open back up, and I was like, wow, this is great. And we're vaccinated, so you had your card and it was fine, but you really couldn't do anything without your vaccination card. And so I was thinking, wow, if you don't have your card here, you're not ordering a slice of pizza. I mean, even if you were going up to the counter and ordering a slice of pizza, you had to show your card to get it and then walk away. So I guess it's pretty similar.
It's pretty, I think in that, when I was home in August. And when I was there, they hadn't, you had your vaccination pass, but I think it wasn't one of those things where, all kind of like public spaces, or most public spaces in New York City, you have to show it. I think at that point it was up to the business owners, but
Well, anyway, I'm glad you're doing well.
I'm doing well. I'm doing fine. Today was the first day where like it was 5:30 p.m. and it was a pitch black outside. So I'm like, oh my God, spring!
Oh,
so that's put me in a great mood.
Oh, that's really good. And I was telling you before we got on here that we have ice outside right now. So, here on the coast, we have ice. So, okay.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Yeah. I know. Well, before we get into this, and I know that some of the listeners who already got a heads up that we were going to be recording with you today, I had told them about the reason that you are such a comfort to us. Of course, needless to say that you sort of the synergy about your life, which we're going to get into, and the comfort of food, of course, but and I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but your voice is so comforting. And when I tell people who haven't heard your podcast or aren't familiar, and before we were having the podcast, but I would just tell people, oh, have you heard about this podcast, or did they know you? People assume when I tell them, oh, she must speak in French. And I said, no, it's not. She doesn't. I mean, yeah, she throws it in there, but it's not that. It's her voice is so, there's a calming effect to your voice. And I just wondered, is that something you hear? I mean, is that something that Jerry and I just picked up on, or is that something that you have heard before?
Yes, people have told me that. Now I'm going to be like, yes. People have definitely, people do compliment my voice a lot, which, it's very lovely. Thank you so much. I don't hear it. In fact, it really took, for a long time, I hated the way I sounded. I thought my voice was too deep. I thought I sounded like a man. And that lasted for a very, very, very long time. It wasn't until I want to say, like, I was somewhere in my early 20s, maybe, that I got comfortable with the way I sounded. For the longest, I just hated the way I sounded, but it's coming in handy. So.
Oh, wow. Well, it's lovely. And it is one of the reasons that we, started listening and kind of became, it is a comfort. It's still a comfort. I mean, but we just loved it. And I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. I just wanted to ask if that was something,
No. I mean, no, like you're not making. I've said no, but like no, you're not. Comfortable.
Okay.
And people have complimenting my voice, which is very, very nice.
Yeah. And it's to our listeners, obviously, and you have already heard before this started that why Jerry's not on the show, but I was talking to him before this started, and I'm a very loud person, and I I said to him before I came on here, I said, I wonder if by the end of the show I'll be sort of more demure and I will have toned it down. I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe we'll see. We shall see. Now I'm like going to be all like, now I feel like I got the rest of the conversation. I have to like talk to you like this and like,
I may have an effect on you, or you may ramp it up. Who knows? Okay, and this isn't just one of those kind of cheesy random podcast questions. I really am curious because I know it's later, and I am curious because of your podcast, because you probably did have dinner already. What did you eat dinner tonight? I'm just wondering, do you always cook the way you do on the show for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I think. Wait, okay, so now you're gonna see the real deal. I have my pajama bottoms on the bottom and the sweater on top. And now you're gonna. Oh, yeah, okay. You're not even gonna see it. I like told on myself, and you're not even gonna see it. Look at me, silly.
Okay. Okay.
So tonight for dinner, actually. So I went to spinning, which I love. I'm like addicted to it.
That's awesome that you're addicted to spinning.
I love spinning.
I wish I was addicted to spinning.
It's one of those like exercise. I don't know. For me, it's one of those kind of like cardio exercise thingies that and it makes me feel like really strong.
Yeah.
Also like very like sexy and supple, and I don't know, there's something about it. It just gets me. I don't know, gets me going.
Yeah, you get all sweaty, and at the end, you're like, hell yeah.
Right? And you're just like, ugh. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if you
a little bit.
It's
So you take a picture. Do you take a picture of it like every night?
Sometimes if it looks good, and it's not just like, hard-boiled eggs and like sardines. But tonight I made like a really quick seafood stew. With like some mussels and little octopus guys, chickpeas.
Wow!
Potatoes,
so you really do cook fancy.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. To me,
it's not to you. It's not fancy to you. Well,
I didn't do anything. I mean, all I did was I chopped up some garlic. That's about all, and I washed the chickpeas. That's about all the prep I did, and it's really easy. It was like garlic, tomato paste, a couple anchovies. I put a little bit of, I had some leftover, like a quarter of a red onion. So I just chopped that up, put that in there. And then what I do after that? And then I got that all together. And then what did I do after that? And then I put some water, and in France, the stock, it's like a little cube. Well, I use a little cube. I put the cube, put the water, put the stock, the cube of stock, or stock of the cube stock, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I put in the potatoes. I use one potato because it's just me. Put in the potatoes, let that boil. Took it, get it till it got soft. Took it out. Kind of like I have a hand blender thingy, so I like all the kind of like little bits and pieces. I blended all that together. Put the potato back in. Put the chickpeas. Put the spinach. Let that all do its thing, and then I added the seafood at the last minute. It only needed like a couple minutes to cook, and then but as I was going along, I was just like tasting and adjusting bits of salt and a bit of pepper, and I have to adjust this one a bit more. It probably needs a bit more spiciness.
I feel like all we needed was like the music from your podcast, and we'd have a little podcast.
It looks fancy, but it's really not. And like you were saying earlier when you were chatting, for me, time is one of the most valuable assets we have.
Yeah.
And for me, cooking, using my time to cook for myself, and especially like a really nice meal and my friends, I can't think of a better way to spend my time, to show myself a kind of care and attention. And the same with, the people that I lucky enough to have in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I really wasn't expecting that. I thought you were going to say, I grabbed a crepe on the way home or something. I don't know. I didn't know what you were going to tell me, but I wasn't expecting that.
I really did. I mean, I really, really love cooking.
We really got a little podcast in. That was wonderful. Dinner for one right there. Well, speaking of that, and for those of you who don't know, Dinner for One was started, and I'll just kind of take it from your tagline from the show, that it's an audio exploration of what happens when the Paris fairy tale ends and real life begins. And you moved to Paris as a married woman, got a divorce,
Correct.
And began cooking dinners for one, and you started the podcast.
Correct.
But what what was I mean, I know some of the story, but for those who don't, what was the catalyst of actually starting the podcast? Like, you know, I don't want to say most people, I don't know the statistics, but a lot of people don't sort of put themselves out there on a podcast. A lot of people will start a blog, or they'll start with a book, even a book. They'll start that way, or they'll write it down, because putting themselves out there on audio or a podcast is really vulnerable. And what made you say, and I really don't know if I know this catalyst, like what exactly was like, okay, I think I'm going to start a podcast. Like, what was the catalyst? Why that route?
Because I know myself very well, and there are a lot of things that I have a lot of flaws, but the one thing I'm quite proud of is my self-awareness. And I know that I do not have the discipline to keep up with a bi-weekly blog where I have to like write something every week or every 2 weeks or whatever. I just do not have the discipline to do that. And also that's honestly like the main reason. And I was listening to a lot of podcasts at the time, and I want, there's so many American women in particular move to Paris, move to France, and write about their experiences in a blog or other kind of more traditional mediums. And I thought it'd be interesting to kind of have people use different senses that they're not used to using when it comes to food, right? Because I don't really show that many pictures of myself on my Instagram. There are no photos on the blog because I'm terrible at taking like professional level food photos. And again, like I didn't have the discipline to teach myself, and like, whatever. But I wanted people to, use their ears when to experience kind of like the food I was cooking. Use their imaginations, you know what I mean? Not necessarily just use the sense of seeing and tasting and smelling, but using, just kind of listening to me. I thought it'd be cool. And also because I wanted it to be very intimate. I thought, again, that would be something very different than what most American women that move to Paris, when they talk about their lives, even if, they do share a lot. I think it's different when you're hearing the person speak to you. And I wanted to have this, because it wasn't on cooking, because it wasn't on food, I wanted to give that for people that listen to my show to have this feeling of being with me in my kitchen. Like, you're my girlfriend. Like, I'm like, girl, you have got to come over tonight because I need to tell you this. And then you're sitting there and you're having a glass of wine with me, and we're chit-chatting, catching up. And so that's really kind of why I decided to go the podcast route, was because I really wanted to create this intimate moment with the people that were listening to me. And, because what I'm sharing is quite intimate, in person.
Yeah.
And I wanted to create that feeling with the people that decided that they wanted to tune in.
Do you, I'm just thinking this now, when you record, do you ever later say, and I've heard you, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I've heard you say before that someone else helps you with the editing. So do you ever sort of send it and go, oh my God, like, what did I say? Or like, do you ever, okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, as you can tell, I like talk, I like go off sometimes. And especially like when I'm cooking, I like to have my little glass of wine. And sometimes the glass of wine turns into 2 or 3 or 4. Towards the end, I'm just like sharing a bit too much. So Lori, the producer of the podcast, yes. She edits it and then she sends it back to me. And there's sometimes I'm like, timestamp 1 minute, 35 seconds to 1 minute 70, 1 minute 52 seconds. Can you take that out? Yeah. Sometimes I have to do that, of course. I have to self-edit.
Because I'm just thinking, I mean, your whole, I mean, the whole thing seems almost like an audio journal. And it, I would imagine on two sides, you're vulnerable. Number one, you've said that you're not a professional chef, which I mean, I'm thinking I would beg to differ, but I mean, it sounds like you are. But I'm thinking, wow, if you don't think you're a professional chef and you're putting yourself out there that you're cooking all these, I think, fancy foods, that's vulnerable. And then you're putting yourself out there with all these topics that, I think is pretty vulnerable. I don't know. I think even like we're very new at this. And I think even the first episode blogging's very different. And then when you talk about hardships or things that you've been through, and then it's out there and you're like, oh my God, like what are people going to say, or what are they going to think, or you can't take it back. It's out there, I don't know. I just wondered, how it feels, or I don't know. I'm just curious.
There are some episodes. I wouldn't say I regret it, or I'm not happy that it's been published. I wouldn't go that far, but I remember, I forgot. I think it was season 1, and I think maybe I had just come back from like New York, and one of my best friends, Alice, had just gotten married, and like all my friends were there, and it was like such an amazing time, and like with my family, and like no one argued. There was like no blowout argument. It's like my family.
Rare.
I know, right? Usually after like 3 days, I'm like, out of here.
Yeah.
And I was just like, and I came back, and I, was, single then as I am now, and just feeling really lonely. And I think I cried or something like that on the episode. And I said to Lori, my producer, I said, we got to get rid of that. And she's like, no, you have to keep that. Like,
yeah,
it's true, and it's real, and it's you.
Yeah.
And I'm happy I did. I think I think one of the reasons why I'm happy I kept that, and also just I'm quite happy with how much I share. I don't share everything, right? There are a lot of things, like people that my friends that know me here in Paris and in New York, my intimate friends, they know me. I think what I share on the podcast is obviously a big part of me, but it's not everything, and I'm able to make that distinction and balance. But it's also, I think, I do what I do and how I do it because I feel like we should, as people, especially as women, especially as like women my age, allegedly I'm like in my late 30s now, whatever. And,
allegedly.
Allegedly. And, women my age, younger, older. I mean, I think there needs to be, we shouldn't be so scared of having the feelings that we have and experiences that we have and sharing them. And there shouldn't be any shame around what we're going through. There shouldn't be any shame around the confusion of what it is to become a woman and come into your womanhood. And even if that means, excuse my language, but like fucking shit up sometimes, or going through hard things like divorce, or, being confused about your career, or about your relationship, or about anything. I just feel like there shouldn't be any shame around that, or any need to project any kind of perfect life. My life is the only thing perfect about my life is like, I'm blessed, by the grace of God, I'm blessed to live in this beautiful city and this amazing country. That's the only thing that's perfect about my life, and it has nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I just feel like, not that you need to share your deepest, darkest secrets with the world. I surely don't. But I don't think there's anything wrong with just showing a bit of humanity and being vulnerable, and also like expecting the good from people. Like no one, I've been so lucky. No one has been mean to me, about vis-a-vis the podcast. No one has sent like really nasty comments or have written in really nasty things. And people have just been really warm and supportive and incredible. And I feel like I've just, been lucky enough to create this amazing community around the podcast. And I think it just, it comes from this place of humility and vulnerableness, and sharing in my way what I think a lot of women, especially like my age and kind of my generation, are going through right now.
Right. I think that what you, and I guess it sort of goes into a question that you, because you put yourself out there, and I wonder if this is intentional, do you feel like I know that I don't even want to say it feels like it is, because I think you are very authentic. Do you cultivate it sort of around self-love? Because I feel like you are almost, as the show goes on, and even as the seasons have gone on, that you have become more confident. And I feel like it almost, as a listener, when we're done listening to it, at least me, and I can speak for Jer too, even he as a man, I think we talked about it before, like, as we were kind of creating the questions around this podcast, that we we both walk away and we go, wow, like you feel uplifted. You feel like you're sort of almost helping us. And I just wonder if you feel like, even though it is sort of an audio journal, do you feel like you are pushing self-love, a message out to people? Do you feel like that?
A little bit. And I try not to, pretend that I'm some kind of like guru or I know anything, and I even
like a self-help podcast. Yeah, I don't think that you're doing that. Yeah.
And when people like ask me for advice, even I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, especially when it comes to relationship advice, I'm like, I'm divorced. I'm the last person you should be talking to about a relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not something that's intentional. I think just as I've gotten older, when I started the podcast, I was, oh Lord, how old was I? I must have been like, shit, I don't know. I don't even know. Maybe I was 33, 34, I think.
Yeah.
And now I'm 37. So I think I've just grown up as well. I've matured. I've learned to accept myself.
Right.
And, my flaws and all. And I think because I've just like, I haven't allowed, the flaws or the things that make me human to affect my confidence. I guess you guys are feeling that. And if, you and other listeners, then also learn to, feel like you guys can also then accept the things about you that are not that great and still show yourself that love and care and affection. And that's awesome.
Right.
It's definitely not something that I'm intentionally like, if you want to do this, if you want to feel like this, do this. It's more like, this is what I do. I make myself my like seafood stew after spinning.
Yeah.
It makes me feel good. And then I watch some kind of like, my new thing on Netflix now is Italian rom-coms. Like I watch like an Italian rom-com before I go to bed, and that's it. And I feel good. Instead of doing what I used to do, which was go out and drink too much and get myself into bad situations and was in a really unhealthy place in my life.
Right. So maybe it's just sort of self-reflection. Like we're just, what we're seeing, and we just sort of reflect it on ourselves.
I think so, yeah.
Well, so speaking of that, so of course, I was thinking, one of the things that we love about your show is that you shine a light on a real life. And that I think that for most of us, and I'm going to speak as an American, I think Americans, especially an American too. I know.
I live here, but
I would definitely categorize myself as a former Francophile. I wouldn't anymore because I don't even know the language anymore. I wouldn't run away and go anymore, but I definitely thought that I was going to, leave college and move to France and, know everything and be there. But, I think that we have this romantic view of Paris, that life is perfect and nothing bad happens. I've been to France and definitely only as a tourist. And when you go as a tourist, and it's definitely wonderful to travel abroad. I've never lived abroad. Living abroad and what you do through your podcast, and I'm going to get to a point in a second. But what you do with your podcast is shine a light on real life. And what I love about it is that it's in Paris. And my next point is, I read this book. And have you read the book, The Paris Wife? It's about
no, but it's on my list of my 35 books I want to read this year.
It's about Ernest Hemingway's first wife, Hadley. And anyway, so I read it a few years ago, and it was this sounds really naive, and I'm not an idiot. I know that real people live in France and they experience terrible things like every human, but it was the first time I had read a book and sort of felt that, real life marriages, love falls apart in Paris. And it's not always this beautiful fairy tale. And so when your podcast came into our lives, it brought that back around for me. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's the second time that, oh, isn't that interesting? Yeah, it's not always the fairy tale, and then your tagline is it's the fairy tale when that doesn't exist anymore. And I think what is great is that not great what happened, but I just think that what is great is that you portray that there are real people living everywhere who experience real things, pain, sadness. We all go through something. And I guess that really wasn't a question, more of a compliment, that I love that you do that. And it just shines a light that we all need to say, hey, there are people everywhere who are going through the same things that we go through.
Totally.
It's not always this beautiful thing, It's not all magical.
It's not. I mean, they're definitely magical moments. And I definitely, I do have these moments from time to time of like walking around, like doing errands or running errands or whatever, and I look up and I think to myself, and I'm like, girl, you live in Paris. What are you doing? Like, you're just like, oh, I gotta buy laundry detergent. Like, you're in Paris. Like, this is crazy. So that's still great, and I'm happy that I still feel that way. It's been almost 9 years I've lived here. But yeah, there's there's a complete different there's a world here. There's a society. There's a culture. And the only reason, one of the reasons I think I've been able to survive here, so to speak, after close to 9 years, is because I did marry into a very French family, so that helped. But also I didn't have these kind of preconceived notions of what Paris would be like, or what French people necessarily would be like. I just accepted them for who they are, which is, great. They're great, but they're also a little kooky. But I accept the full package, and I have a great appreciation for this country and this culture, which I think is why I also allow myself to kind of make fun of it sometimes, and also share the things that are not so great. And it's someone. There is there's definitely a romantic element of living in Paris. I mean, in my opinion, it is the most beautiful city in the world. Nothing could ever top it. That will never change. If by listening to my podcast or whatever, engaging in my content, someone that wants to move to Paris moves here, with whatever preconceived notions they might have, but also with this idea of like, I also just need to accept it for what it is, and not think I'm going to change it and like just ride the waves of the ups and downs. Yeah. I'd be happy, because then you get then in my opinion, you're actually like living here. You're experiencing it. You're not trying to make, the reality fit your fantasy. You're just like actually just experiencing and living it. And right. That's the best way to approach kind of like living here and living amongst French people and integrating and all that stuff.
We've told you about one of our favorite partners, Sugar Wish, but let us tell you about what they now have as a gift option.
Vino! Vinebox by Sugar Wish is the perfect gift for a wine lover or someone who wants to get into wines to dabble a bit.
If you're looking for corporate gifts,
or even for Valentine's,
check out Vinebox by Sugar Wish.
They are hand-picked by the glass packaging. The by the glass format allows you to try regions and grapes that you've never heard of or were hesitant to buy an entire bottle of.
Think of it as a tasting room for small wineries all over the globe, delivered straight to your door.
We received a Vine box and were able to choose 3 wines to taste from France. We received a little booklet about them, and now I have opened up my palate to new varieties. How fancy!
These wines aren't available at your local store. This is the stuff that you stumble across on a back road trip through Tuscany. Oh. The gems that local restaurants save for a special occasion.
Oh, it's so easy. You just go to the website, sugarwish.com, choose Vinebox, choose the size of the gift, enter a personalized message and note tailored to the person you're sending it to, and it arrives to that person in their email or text. They choose the wine, and then it's delivered straight to their door.
Use code Betty White, that's all caps, one word, Betty White, to save $7 off your gift. We also have the link in the show notes.
Vinebox by Sugar Wish. Happiness guaranteed. Now back to the show.
The topics of the show definitely go beyond the marriage and all of that stuff. So I'm wondering, we talked about it sort of being the audible journal, sort of like, okay, I'm going to talk about this today, and I think this food would pair well with it. Or how do you decide that?
That's exactly it.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, I want to talk about this. What can I, like, okay, this is on my mind. This is what I'm going to talk about. What's gonna go well with that topic. That's much, you hit the nail on the head.
One of the our favorites was the I know it was about being you weren't homesick, but you were talking about homesick, and it was the fried. The fried plantain and the fried plantains, because I love fried plantains. And so I was like, this is perfect. Did she plan it like this? Because that's like the perfect thing. And so I'm always like, did she plan it?
No, I do. I do.
Okay.
I do. I always do. Sorry. I'm just not like, Julie and Julia. We're like, Meryl, like Julia, Meryl playing Julia.
Yes.
It's like, ooh, and like, go to the market and like, no, I definitely.
I love that movie.
Me too.
Also, I did write this down because Jerry was like, make sure you tell her how much we love the Fearless Tart.
Oh, yeah.
The eggplant. And, yeah.
Oh, it's good.
We love that. It's so good. We have it written down in our little recipe. We have like a recipe box, and we have it written down. And we that's a constant for us. Like, we make that a lot. And we're not cooks, like, at all.
I didn't even, the crazy thing is like, thank you again so much for the compliments on like what I cook and stuff. But when I never made a tart before I moved to Paris. Like, I never really cooked that much. I think the first time I cooked for my friends back in the States, I made maybe, and this was before grad school, right? So I was an undergrad at this point. I think I tried to make chicken, and it definitely wasn't cooked. The roux was like pink on the inside, and it was like, Sutanya, we can't eat this. Like, this is you're gonna poison us. I was really bad, and even when I moved here, like, I didn't, my ex-husband did a lot of the cooking. I didn't really cook that much, so I'm happy you guys like the tart, because I literally never made tarts before, and now, regular rotation, shimmer.
Yeah,
we'll see.
I mean, well, we do a lot of the the we don't do a lot of the stuff by hand. I mean, if we can buy a pre-made, the pre-made. Yeah, the pastry. Yeah,
I do that too. I'm just sitting here making my own pastry. So I'll get out of here. No way. I mean, no.
And I have to say, when you talked about the sensory stuff, my favorite. I don't even know why this is, and my mouth is watering now thinking about it. When you, and I don't know if it's on the intro or if it's sort of one of the transitional music pieces or parts of your podcast, but when you have the sound of the wine pouring.
Oh yeah, that's the best.
Oh, I don't even know why I love that so much, but I just love it so much.
Me too. Oh. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's so perfect. Yeah, it makes me feel like I'm right there, like,
That's what I like to hear.
So, Montmartre, neighborhood of Paris. I wanted to tell you this story because I thought this was really funny. Jerry and I had booked. This is going to be this great trip. We had saved, and we were going to be there for almost 3 weeks.
Oh, lovely.
So, it was going to be so great, right? So, I think 2019, 2020, or 2020, 21. I can't remember now. But anyway, we had this trip booked somewhere in COVID. And now I'm thinking maybe it was into 2021. But anyway, we were like, what's going to happen? Are we going? Are we not going? Now I think it's 2020 into 2021. But we didn't know what was going to happen. But anyway, we had a little tiny apartment Airbnb booked in that neighborhood because I never knew how to say it. And it was like this tiny little apartment. And we were so excited, and we were like, oh God, please let us go. Please. This is going to be gone. This is going to be gone. It's going to go away. And the guy who ran the Americans couldn't go to France at that time. And it was never lifted. And we just had not canceled. We had not canceled this Airbnb. And the guy who ran the Airbnb emailed, and the translation, he meant well. But he messaged and he said, because Americans are not allowed here, and we don't want you here, can you please go ahead and cancel? And I said, surely he doesn't mean that. So I messaged back and I said, I was just waiting to see if I was going to be allowed there. And then we went back and forth, and then he said, he finally, I think, caught it. And then he was like, by the way, I didn't mean we don't want you here. I meant we don't want the reservation still here and you not here. We would want you here another time, but because Americans aren't allowed here, could you go ahead and cancel? He's like, can I please have these 3 weeks so I can book them?
I know, right?
Anyway. So when I saw that you lived in that neighborhood, I was like, oh my God, that's so funny, because we were going to be there. Anyway, I digress.
I love this neighborhood so much. Like, knock on wood. I hope I say it so much that I hope I'm not jinxing it, but I'm actually like speaking it into the universe. I hope I never have to leave this neighborhood. I love it so much. There's so much character here. It's a bit like it's like a bit tucked away from the rest of Paris, especially where I live. In Montmartre, there aren't a lot of tourists around here.
Yeah.
It's still really easy to get to the center. I love how diverse it is racially and also socioeconomically. I do a lot. You follow me on Instagram and see my stories and stuff, and I like take little snaps of the neighborhood. It's really villagey, and you get to know people. And I know my wine guy, and I know the guy at the green grocer, and I know my cheese lady, and like it's really, I don't know. Like people watch out for each other here, and they look out for each other. It's really nice.
So you say, I've heard you say before that you don't believe in absolutes. So are your general thoughts that you would stay?
I mean, if that's in my life plan, then I could definitely see myself staying here. As my parents age, I'd probably spend more time in the States. Yeah. But for now, I see my life here in France. In Paris specifically. And I hope it stays that way. We'll see. You never know, right? Like, who knows where life is going to take me. But for now, I see myself here.
Okay.
Now, at this time. But you never know. Like, tomorrow, I'd be like, I'd probably be like, hey, fucking country.
I want to get back to New York now. Well, let's talk about your book.
Okay,
because you're now an author, which is super.
In a couple months, yeah. Yeah,
which is exciting. Wild. We pre-ordered your book, and I cannot wait.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. Yeah. So it's called Dinner for One: How Cooking in Paris Saved Me. We are going to link it down in the show notes so that everyone can go and pre-order it.
Please do.
Yeah. So how did that come about? Is that something you wanted to do all along, or did that opportunity just present itself?
I've always been a writer. I've always been someone that has written, like, personally and also for my like professional work, copywriting and that stuff in career. So when I signed up with my agent and all that stuff, it was cool to be like, oh, I have an agent. But then she's like, so the proposal, and I was like, oh, come on, really? I have to do this.
Right.
It was, it's not something that I don't know, it's not something that I ever thought was, if I'm going to be honest, it wasn't something that I ever thought was possible. I don't know, for me at least, as someone who's always been, especially more of a reader, to be honest, than a writer. Like always loved reading, always loved reading. reading my first love. I hold up. There's so many writers that I hold up with such great esteem, and I think they're amazing. And what they've done for me in my life, I couldn't even like dare imagine putting words, to paper, on paper to paper, whatever that phrasing is, in the same way that they were able to. So it's not something that I ever thought I could ever do beyond how are we going to brand this toothpaste? My own kind of writing short stories and things like that I would do for myself and never really share with anyone. I never thought that it would happen, but I guess the universe had other plans, and I met my agent at the right time. And I signed with her right before COVID hit. Either it was right before not COVID, but like the lockdown. I can't remember if it was right before the lockdown I signed with her or a couple days into it.
Yeah.
But it was a perfect time because I was home and I was by myself, like in my apartment here. And it was able to occupy my time and my mind. And, only God knows what would have happened, to me mentally if I didn't have it. Mm-hmm. So it kind of came about at the right time. But it's not something that, to be honest, it's not something that I ever envisioned to come out of the podcast. I'm still shocked when people, like you, Shannon, like when you email me like, oh my God, I love your podcast. I'm like, wait, I don't think I know this person personally. So how did you find me? Like, what is going on here? I'm still so shocked when people that I don't know, in my personal life or friends of friends, find the show and appreciate it. So this was not a part of the plan at all, the podcast. But I'm really happy that it happened, and I'm happy to see what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what's going to happen next, rather.
Yeah. Your last, and I think it's the most recent episode where you read a part of it. Oh.
Yeah, that one was, it was rough. It was after, so I recorded it, edited it. I want to say within the same day. That was the first time I also edited an episode on my own. Like my producer was available. And so I needed to do it. I wanted to get it done. I wanted to get it out. So it was like a very intense, moment.
Yeah. It felt intense.
Yeah. As I mentioned in the intro of that episode, I'd only read it aloud to like myself and like a handful of friends, not even a handful, like 3 friends, 3 or 4 friends. I had other friends kind of like read it just to, double check and make sure it makes sense. But I never read it to like a larger audience. And, you listen to it, so it gets pretty deep and personal. And for like 3 or 4 days after, I had the biggest knot in my stomach. I felt so exposed. I felt so naked. It was like the strangest, I don't know. It was just like the strangest feeling. I'm over it now. But again, I didn't feel that way and then regretted it. It was just kind of like, whoa, girl, like this is some next level sharing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh.
But it's okay. It's okay. It's good practice because the book gets pretty
well,
deep.
And I think it just puts out there how cooking in Paris saved you. I think very you true. Have to lay down the ground. I think it really was needed. I mean, I think because I think it to me, it told me, it sort of just made me realize,
Yeah. This dinner, for one thing, it didn't just come about because she wanted to just like cook fancy food and put it on Instagram.
Right. It was just really like, I mean, there's no other word than just, I'm excited about it, and I'm so excited for you.
So much. Yeah, I mean, I don't, I'm at the point now. I've been working on it for 2 years now. I'm still like, right now I'm very much in the last bits of like last proofreading, all that stuff. It's been 2 years of me working on this intensely. I even went away to the south of France for a couple months on my own to write the first draft. And now I'm just really excited to like get it out there, and people that my friends that know me, just kind of, they're going to learn so much about me. Especially my friends here that didn't know me back when I was in the States, or even my friends in the States Like they don't know that much about what's going on here. You know, because when you live abroad and you try to catch up with your friends, you're not going to spend an hour talking about yourself and like what you're doing. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
Like, they probably miss a lot of stuff. And also, you know, people like you that discovered the show and appreciate it and appreciate my story, like what you guys think as well. I'm really excited to get it out.
Yeah.
But I regret saying that because people are going to be like, this book is crap. I'm excited to get it out there.
No, they won't say that. Well, I'm excited about the audience questions, which is next.
Okay,
and these are, we sent an email to the folks who are on our email list to get a heads up of who we're recording. And so these are some of the questions that we got back. And some of these you've addressed on the show, but some you haven't. So I'm excited to go through them. Okay. So the first one is, what do you think of Emily in Paris? Emily in Paris, of course, being the Netflix series. This person said it seems really unreal. Really?
I mean, okay, here's the thing. Emily, the bane of my existence.
I know.
There, you know, the thing that annoys me about Emily in Paris the most is that there was an opportunity to tell a more realistic story. That's it. You know, and maybe I feel like this way because I'm an American that lives here. I don't know, but I'm just tired of, you know, seeing this trope of the kind of like fish out of water American that comes here and just constantly makes social blunders, doesn't really learn French. All these Frenchmen are like falling out of the sky into her lap, and it's like, oh, come on. And also showing a very superficial, you know, showing French culture and Parisian people and Parisian culture in a very kind of like stereotypical, superficial, shallow way. That's my problem with it. That said, like any other city in the world, any other major city in the world, you have extremely wealthy people that live in Paris, that visit Paris, that live, you know, that whether they're French or foreigners. And I'm pretty sure you have a lot of women in Paris that are living Emily's life. That dress head to toe Chanel, that, you know, only go to certain neighborhoods, only go to certain parties, have certain jobs if they work. So I think there's Emily's Paris is not my Paris, but I wouldn't say it's completely fake. And it's just not the Paris that I am dying to see on television.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not the Paris that I want to see portrayed on television, like from a American in Paris perspective and point of view.
Right. A missed opportunity.
Yeah, that's it. I mean,
yeah. Right.
But I don't. Yeah, I can respect the show, especially when it's season 1. You know, it kind of fed into a lot of people's yearning to travel and kind of escapism, which perfect timing for the creators of the show and the writers and actors and all that stuff. But I don't know. I just felt like it could have been a little bit better. But
the next question was, how often do you actually visit the Eiffel Tower?
Never. Literally never. I had a friend of mine was interviewing an author at the American Library maybe a couple months ago now. I can't remember. And so it's super close to the Eiffel Tower. And that was the first time I'd been in that neighborhood and there in literally years. It's like if you're from New York City and you go to Times Square, like what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Like, it's super residential around there. There's nothing for me to do there. Even in the summertime, like if I want to have a picnic with friends, you either go to the Seine or you go to Parc Monceau, which is like a park in kind of my neck of the woods. You go to Bouchermont. Like, you know, I mean, I don't think many people that live here go to the Eiffel Tower because they want to, like voluntarily. It's maybe like, oh, friends are in town. So it's
totally a tourist thing. Mm-hmm.
Friends are in town or family or, I mean, I guess if you live close by, you know, you can go for walks in there and stuff, but it's not in my opinion, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I don't think that a lot of people that actually live here on a daily basis would go and like hang out in the summertime. Like, even when my friends come to visit in the summer, like I'm like, if you want to go to Eiffel Tower, knock yourself out. If you want to go to Champs-Élysées, knock yourself out. I am not. Meet me back here. I am not going with you. No.
That makes sense.
To answer that question, how often do I go? Never.
Never. This question is interesting. What does your ex think of your podcast, and do you care?
I love the do you care. Lucky enough, I mean, I don't care, but lucky enough, he's actually really proud of me, and he's really proud about the book and excited about it as well. And I think it's because, you know, I drew a line in the sand. I made it very clear from the beginning that I'm not going to even as much as mention his name. You know, I'll share small details about him, like the fact that he's Jewish and things like that. But there are a lot of Jewish Frenchmen in Paris. You know, let's single him out. But I'm very respectful of his privacy and my privacy and the privacy of our couple and, you know, what happened in our relationship. And he knows that he can trust me with that. And I'm not, you know, Dinner for One is my perspective, especially in the book, because I talk more about our relationship. And it's like how I lived it in my perspective. He could have a completely different perspective. And I'm not about trashing him in public. That's what I have girlfriends for.
Yeah.
But also, more so than that, that's not what the story is about, right? My story isn't about my ex-husband. My story is about how I used cooking as a way to help me get over something that was really shitty, to be frank, and really hard. It's not about him. So I don't care, but I'm lucky enough that he's very proud of me and happy for me.
That's great. Yeah. Okay, and then that kind of, you may have sort of answered this next person's question. Will you still have the Dinner for One podcast when you're cooking for two?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, will I ever cook for two? God, please send him. Is he going to knock on the door after
I mean, if you're saying that Dinner for One is sort of, you know, this is for you, and so if you're when it's for two, is it finito?
Does this person have someone in mind? I mean, please. Maybe if I fall in love with whoever she has in mind for me, just for this list, I'm assuming it's a her. I don't know, but this
actually that one was a her. The Eiffel Tower was a male. Yeah. That one was a her.
If she has someone in mind and I end up falling in love with this gentleman, I will record Dinner for Two. Okay. No, but honestly, no. If Dinner for One, if you know, by miracle and chance and probably some kind of like bribing, I end up meeting someone. I wouldn't make Dinner for Two because I already share so much about myself. I want to keep that private. I'm not staying at home every night by myself. I do date. I do go on dates from time to time, and I have met people. And I don't talk about it on the podcast, other than in general, kind of like I'm dating, or I've dated. But I definitely want to keep that to myself and for myself. And so if Dinner for Two were to ever happen, it wouldn't be a part of the podcast. And
right.
I mean, even as the podcast continues, I think I'm going to incorporate more interviews and less of me in my life, because it's also another point where, like, all right, it's been 5 seasons. You still in your kitchen cooking dinner? Like, maybe you need to go out there, girl. You know? But maybe I need to, you know, get out of my kitchen and stop cooking my fish stew.
God.
You know?
Well, okay. So speaking of the kitchen, this last question was: how do you record the podcast and cook and still sound so smooth?
Thank you. A lot of editing from Lori, and also I have a lapel mic, so she like mics me up. So I have a little mic on the collar, you know, little mic pack, whatever. And so then my hands are free. I'm just chatting. and editing as well. I mean, God bless Lori and her patience and her skills and her talent, because she does a really good job of making me sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, she really does a good job. Because at first I was like, is she really cooking? Or is she just like, is she cooking and then later doing this? Or how's this working? But yeah.
You guys literally hear me drinking that wine. You hear me taking that first bite. You hear me like being like, oh, this doesn't taste good.
Yeah. Well, then I realized, no, you're totally doing it. I mean, yeah. Well, it's really good. Okay, so then our rapid fire questions, which these are the 10 questions that Jerry and I do that we get. Okay. This was all Jerry's idea in the beginning because we're big. We love this stuff, and these are tailored for you.
Okay.
You can. Some of them are you're totally going to get, and some of them are like, an American who knows nothing about France came up with this. But okay. Okay, number 1, New York or Paris?
Oh no, no. I plead the fifth. Next.
We.
No. I'm not answering that. Sicily. Next.
Okay. Number two, and this is my favorite. Passing through Patty or Emily in Paris type?
Oh. I get, as much as it pains me to say this, I shouldn't have signed up for this 10 rapid question thing. I should have been like, end of show. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, you go to season 3, episode 7.
As much as I'm not.
I really don't even know. Like, I was even like, which one is she going to choose? Because I don't even know which one I would choose.
As much as I can't believe I'm going to say this, and it's going to live with me forever on audio. I would have to go with Emily because at least Emily's here. At least she's here, you know. Passing through Patty, she's like, thanks for the croissant, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, but Emily.
Oh, that was one of my favorite episodes, by the
way. Thank you. I'm happy you appreciate it.
Which do the French do it better? Cheese or chocolate? Fromage or chocolat?
Fromage for sure.
Okay.
Fromage.
The Paris Metro or New York City subway?
Paris Metro. There's less like showtime, you know? Like when you're sitting on the subway in New York and it's like 8 a.m. and you're like half asleep, you're like, showtime, everybody. Oh God, come on, no.
Okay.
Here.
Okay, what is better in Paris? Mornings or evenings?
I mean, they're both incredible. I'm not gonna lie. Because
I would imagine.
I can't choose because the mornings, it's like it literally smells like croissants. Like I'm not like baked goods and croissants. Like I'm not lying. It smells like that, and it smells like coffee, and you see like the people sitting on terrace, and you see kind of like everything moves a bit slowly. Everyone's waking up, like no one's in a rush, like no one's like. It's amazing, and then in the
evening, what I picture. That's what I picture.
It's correct, and then in the evening when you're walking home, you see everyone outside. Even now when it's cold out, people are outside on terrace with a glass of wine, cigarettes, you know, just enjoying life, having a little drink or eating before going home or having dinner. The city is very much Parisians live in Paris. They live in the city. Like they are a part of the city. Like they like they're in the city. I don't know how I'm not articulating it well, but they're part of the city. I feel like in a way that I don't know. Maybe also because I didn't
like they live in the now. Like they
not even that. Like I feel like they just take up space in a way that, and again, maybe it's because I didn't really live in New York as an adult that much. Most of my adult service has been here in Paris. But I don't know, just like for example, the fact that the streets are lined with cafes, right? With terraces outside, cafes, all the cafes have seating outside. So it's like, usually when you go to a restaurant, you go inside and you're cut off from the city, from the noise, from the people. But here, you're part of it, even if you're eating, even if you're drinking. You see the people that are passing by, you hear the noises, you're constantly in the environment. You're constantly communicating with the city. The city is constantly giving you signals and smells and vibes and noises.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like, and even, it's not only just cafes, it's like even like your local tabac, so the place you buy cigarettes. A lot of them have seating outside. So you can like buy your cigarettes, grab a beer, and like watch people walk by and like be a part of the city. Yeah. And some boulangeries too have seating outside. Like it's very much, so I think both. If you can't choose, I think mornings and evenings are the best. Sorry.
Then you might not be able to answer the next one either, because I said wine or cafe au lait.
Wine.
Okay. Okay, so number 7, American French fries or French pommes frites?
I'm gonna go with French pommes frites.
Okay.
The frites here are pretty good. The frites here, they're pretty good.
Okay. Confit or frying?
Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's a good one. Confit.
Okay. I didn't even know, by the way, that there was a difference until you kept saying it in your shows. And I was like, I don't really understand. And then I learned from you what the difference was. See, it's also a learning experience, folks. Number 9, email or handwritten letter?
I mean, I love a handwritten letter.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I get one,
I do too.
Through the moon.
I know.
But do I ever do it? Very rarely. I mean, like
I know.
one thing that I do once in a while, and I do it so rarely that when my friends get it in their a little note from me in their mailbox, they're like, "Oh my God!" But once in a while, I do, especially my close girlfriends. I tend to write them a little note, just being like, like, you're doing great, or like, I really love this about you as a friend. Like, you're a great mom, little things like that. But I don't do it as often as I want to. But when I do, it's always well received. So I would say handwritten letter. But even if I don't do it that much.
Okay, and then number 10, book or audio?
Oh, book.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay. All right.
Sure. No question about it.
Yeah. Okay, you're like I am. They're rapid fire, but they're not rapid fire when I answer them. You're the same as I am.
Oh. There's nothing rapid fire about Sutanya Dacres, I'll tell you that much.
Okay, and then our last question, which is the most important in our world, is, Sutanya, what does a life well lived mean to you?
I've been thinking about this. I mean, for me, a life well lived is using the precious time that we all have here on this earth in a way that brings you, it's kind of like the most pleasure and joy. And all those actions are led with kindness and care. One of like my favorite rappers, Mos Def, he says this thing where about death. He's like, we're all walking in the same direction. It's just about how you're going to get there and under what circumstances and how quickly,
Yeah.
For me, the life well led is one that everything is led with love and care and good intentions. But then also just like using our precious time on this earth wisely and in a way that brings you joy. So that's what I try to do at least, and I hope I'm leading a good life. I hope you do.
How great is it in this world that there's technology that we can actually do this, and also technology that allowed us to be able to have you in our life. I mean, we wouldn't have even known about you without technology, but you're doing it, and whatever situation you had, it was not a situation that you would have wanted in your life, but because of it, you have inspired so many people. I mean, including us, and you've touched so many lives. And I think that through that, it brought joy, and you continue to. And I think that definitely is a life well lived. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for being here. And, next time you're in New York, whenever all this Armageddon stuff stops, hopefully we can work it out.
I am stealing that. I'm going to, whatever, I've gotten a couple like notifications from like some group chats, whatever. I'm sure someone's going to bring up pandemic COVID. I'm like, this Armageddon, I'm stealing it. It's mine now.
Because I can't pronounce any of the new things I keep hearing about. And then I'm like, oh my God. And it scares me and it gives me anxiety. And I don't want to learn the new Greek alphabet. And I don't want to know about it. So I'm just like, Armageddon. It's just Armageddon. But yes, I hope that it works out at some point, that either we do finally get to Paris and in that neighborhood, and we can have wine or coffee in the morning or whatever.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That'd be incredible. Definitely wine.
Wine, definitely wine. Okay, so we're going to link definitely down below, but tell our listeners where they can find you.
Okay, so you can find me on anywhere you listen to the podcast, Dinner for One. So it's Dinner for FOR. And one. People always ask me, like, is it 4? Is it something? No, FOR. You can find me, so Spotify, iTunes, whatever. I also have a website, dinnerforonepodcast.com. I was much better in the beginning of when I started the podcast about the recipes and about like writing little stories and stuff behind episodes. But, as time and, la vie, quoi. I got a little busy, but I'm sure I'm going to have to, especially as the book is coming out, I'm going to have to probably get on that. And so that's, so you can Google search, whatever, wherever you listen to the podcast, the website, and then there's also Instagram, which I am more active on. And it's dinner for, then period, like the punctuation, 1, and that's my Instagram, and that's where you can find me. And if you would like to pre-order the book, you can do that from Amazon.com, or you can go on HarperCollins' website and click whatever retailer you prefer to order it from. The link to that page is in the bio of my Instagram. Uh-huh. And if you happen to be in Paris, in the 18e, in Montmartre, you might see me. Stop, holler at your girl. Say what's up. If I'm wearing a beanie and I look rough, please don't judge me. Instagram is a lie. All the fancy photos are a lie. This is how I look most of the time, which is makeupless and whatever. But thank you everyone for kind of like listening to my show, and thank you, Shannon, for having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
No, thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Yeah, because yeah.
Oh gosh, do you not absolutely love Sutanya?
Yeah, I do. That was wonderful.
I mean, you couldn't be there, of course, but now that you've heard the conversations a few times during editing, you've heard it quite a few times, but you're super jealous, right?
I'm super jealous, but you did a great job on your own, and man, I wouldn't change the time spent in Dubois for no, I'm just kidding. But no, that was that was a great episode to listen to, so I really enjoyed it.
And it was another situation, as we have said with the other episodes, where you meet someone that you have admired and they were not a disappointment. She was not a disappointment at all. In fact, you all have seen that this episode was quite lengthy. I apologized to her several times, and I have since, about how long it was, because we just enjoyed the conversation so much, and she was so gracious because of the time difference. It was getting late there. I just really enjoyed it. And you know that when you came home that night, I told you I really felt like I was just sitting down with a friend. I mean, she was just lovely.
Well, yeah, and I can tell by your voice that you were really comfortable with her, and I think vice versa, she was really comfortable with you, and we've really been lucky that everyone's we've had so far has exceeded our expectations.
Yeah,
and so far so good. Yeah, we're on a good roll.
And for those of you who know me, you know that, as I mentioned on the podcast, I'm very loud. And and it's like I had said, it did happen. And I noticed in the editing that my voice did become calmer around her.
I noticed that too. Yeah.
So I just need to maybe just play her podcast more and just have everything about me just be more calm. I mean, like we did during the early parts of the pandemic when we found her podcast and we were just looking for anything to calm us, you know? We would just play it, but we would listen to them because we were sort of binging to catch up when we discovered her. And hopefully you all discovered that her voice is just so calming. I keep going on and on about it, but it is.
And one of my first thoughts on the episode was, I'm going to have to recommend to Shannon that she listens to more of Sutanya for the calming effect. And it definitely wasn't diversion from our usual Americanized
yes
sort of sometimes morning zoo type of banter that we've gotten into. None of that this time, you all. It was
morning
zoo, no bells, whistles, no,
yeah,
just pretty smooth and straightforward, Euro style.
Okay. So, well, you've listened to it. What would you say sort of your biggest takeaways from that conversation from Sutanya?
Well, I just like her straightforwardness, and she just seems to draw really nicely on her experiences and a willingness to share them with her audience as a way to grow and for people to learn from what she's been through, and everybody kind of benefits there. The cooking. Yeah. Boy, that's the coolest thing. That's what kind of keeps you in there once you're rolling along. And the fearless tart. Boy, I'm glad we found out about that.
I had to make sure that I told her how much that you love it. We love it, but I know that you're a big fan of it.
Yeah.
So I made sure I dropped that. I think that loved the whole thing, of course. I was trying to think what was the biggest key takeaway for me. I like the little tidbits of things where she says that she's walking around Paris and she still sort of looks up and says, she pinches herself and says, I live in Paris. And she can still sort of appreciate the magic that is that, even though we talked about how, yes, it's still real world, but she still lives her life and appreciates the beauty around her. And I love that. I loved that also sort of that magic feeling when she answered the rapid fire questions and she could not choose between morning and evening in Paris. I mean, that is exactly what I would imagine, is that you cannot choose, Yeah. I felt like she really epitomizes someone who has really taken a situation that could have been, I'm sure it was jarring, but something that could have been really terrible, and for many might not have taken it and made something so positive out of it. And she made something really positive. And like she said, for her life, the answer to the question, a life well lived, she has taken this life and brought joy and enjoyed it herself.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope you all enjoyed it as much as we did. It was longer than our normal episodes. So hopefully you enjoyed the conversation and it flew by like it did for our conversation with her.
Well, if you want a heads up on our guests prior to our recording, you can be a part of our VIP list. We'll put the link in the show notes. That way you get to submit questions that we may ask our guests on the episode.
And you can find out about Sutanya, of course, in the show notes. Information on Dinner for One, where to find her, ordering her upcoming book, and all of this information, of course, can be found at arneradventures.com/podcast.
If you love this podcast, please give it a 5-star review or rating at lovethepodcast.com/Arner Adventures. You can always find us at arneradventures.com, on Instagram at Arner Adventures, all linked in the show notes. So until next time, enjoy the journey that you're on. We're wishing you lots of adventures.
Bye.